Hello. In this short video, I'm going to discuss supporting UCU action and how your supporting our action benefits us all. One of the first things we're asked is, why are we on strike? We're on strike for four main reasons. First of which I've shown here is workloads. Our workloads are unmanageable, unsustainable, and are causing staff stress and physical exertion. We are paid to work just 37 hours per week for 43.3 weeks of the year. This ends up not being enough time for all of our work, and this is a year-round problem. To achieve the work, members of staff are working evenings, they're working weekends, and they're working when they've booked off on holiday. And they do this all for no additional pay because they care for their students and they care for the university. Next is casualization. I've included here a picture of a member of staff, not from Kingston, but from elsewhere that you might be familiar with. This is an hourly paid lecturer, someone who is paid on a temporary contract and paid just for the hours that they are working for the university. This is not sustainable either. As you can see, for some people, they find it very difficult. They won't find out year on year if they have a job and what that pay might be. It is difficult to plan for the future. It is difficult to get rental agreements. It is nearly impossible to get a mortgage because there's no statement of future earnings. And it makes it difficult to accrue a pension that is going to be sustainable in retirement years. Use of casualized temporary staff, HPLs, hourly paid lecturers, also means that there are fewer permanent staff. That's fewer members of staff that are dedicated to working for your university, who receive university training and university benefits, and will be there for you year on year. The next point to address is pay gaps. These are documented real-term gaps, differences in pay, in salaries, between men and women, with men earning higher than women, between white people and those who are not, with whites earning higher salaries than those who are not white, and between those who are not disabled and those who are disabled, with disabled staff earning considerably less than those who are not. This pay isn't based on skills. It isn't based on experience, and yet white men who have no disability get higher pay than other members of staff. And lastly, and this is the one that perhaps gets emphasized the most, but is actually just one of our four fights, is the pay decreases that we've experienced. Over the last 10 years, we have had pay rises, sure, but they've all been under inflation. If you look at this small graph here that I've shown, the top line is the retail price index, the RPI. Now you can see that this has gone up year on year, and as it has gone up, our pay, which is the bottom line, has not kept pace with it. The gap between the RPI and our pay is getting wider and wider. This is a real terms pay cut for us. Although our pay hasn't stayed static, it's not stayed along the zero line, it has gone up slightly. It is nowhere near enough to manage costs year on year. And this was even before the cost of living crisis. So we are then asked, what are we doing? What are we doing to make these points known and to try to win these points? The first is strikes. These are days where we do not work. Many of us are familiar with strike action because there's lots of strikes happening in the UK currently. We don't get paid for those days that we're on strike, but they do make an impact and send the message that we are not happy. Our next tool is an action short of strike. This is when we only do the work that we are paid to do. So thinking about our workload that I discussed on the previous slide, this would mean for full-time employees only working their 37 hours per week. For part-time employees actually working what they're being paid for as a part-time employee. And hourly paid lecturers not volunteering their time to the university for hours that they are not paid. So no extra hours and no voluntary work, such as sitting on committees or other things the university may ask us to do, but isn't actually within our jobs. And finally, we have the marking and assessment boycott, the MAB. We're at the point of using this tool because national negotiated offers have not been sufficient. They haven't even touched some of the issues that we have addressed, and they are just not engaging. We will not engage with marking student work or the admin associated with doing that student work, marking the assignments, getting those marks inputted, getting those marks ratified, and taking them to committees. We understand this hits students, and we don't want to disadvantage students. We really care about our students. This is why we passionately teach our students and why we're doing evenings and weekends and teaching on holidays, because we care about the students and the education that they receive. But we've been left with this, our most powerful tool, the marking and assessment boycott, because the national powers are not taking seriously the needs of your staff. And if, as shown in these pictures, if your staff are stressed and overworked, they're not going to be able to give you the kind of care, attention, feedback that you deserve as a student, or that your student deserves as a parent or as another member of our community. So who can stop it? Who can stop this industrial action, the strikes, the action short of strike, and the marking and assessment boycott? So we think about the four parties involved at our university. We have Kingston UCU. This is a national strike. So every university in the nation is participating in this strike. So we don't have the power to stop this industrial action, just as our own local branch of UCU. So you might say, all right, then what about UCU National? So as a national organization, the University and College Union has the power to stop this industrial action, but only if we achieve some progress. There is no point in us stopping at this point until something has been achieved that addresses our workload, addresses the reliance on casualized temporary members of staff, that addresses the pay gaps, gender, race, disability pay gaps, and that addresses our pay. So the next organization is UCU, the University and Colleges Employers Association. UCU is a national organization, and that has the power to negotiate. They negotiate on behalf of all of the universities. That would end our industrial action, meaningful negotiation between UCU and UCU. But UCU isn't currently negotiating. They have not made offers that make progress, and they have now left the negotiating table. And lastly, we have Kingston University, so our university. Kingston University doesn't have the power to increase our pay. That is all set nationally. That is UCU. So any increase in pay will have to come through UCU. Any national measures that address casualization, pay gaps, and workload, which are issues throughout the UK university sector, would need to be implemented by UCU to have any meaning and to ensure that institution to institution, these matters have all been addressed. So what's happening now? That's how it could be stopped. What's actually happening now? So we have the Kingston UCU, where we have select staff that are facing a 50% pay cut for participating in the marking and assessment boycott. That is what is happening now this month. Kingston UCU has asked Kingston University to make a public statement urging UCU back to the negotiating table and urging the government to release funds to the university sector. You may know that university tuition fees are capped and the amount of funding universities receive is capped, regardless of what inflation has done, regardless of the cost of living, which impacts universities as well, who have to keep the lights on. They have to pay their energy bills as well. So the goal here is for us to urge our university to make statements to UCU and make statements to the government to say something nationally needs to be done. If we then skip to the other side of the slide and look at what Kingston University is doing, Kingston University is doing what it can locally to look at ways to address casualization, pay gaps, and workloads, and they're doing this in collaboration with the Kingston UCU. So we do have a good working relationship with our university, but in many matters, our hands are all tied because these are national concerns. So what is UCU doing nationally? UCU is trying to get UCU back to the negotiating table, and they're asking government for more funding for universities. So what's UCU doing? Nothing. They've left the negotiating table. They're not presenting any more deals to UCU. This is it. So how can you help us? One of the ways you can help is by writing to the VC. This is Stephen Spear, our Vice Chancellor, and his email address is there. Urge him to publicly send a KU statement saying that Kingston University supports its members of staff and urging UCU back to the negotiating table with UCU. And urge him to make public anything he might be doing that is asking the government to increase the funds that are released to higher education. The next thing you can do is know about the Kingston University pay. When we speak to students, parents, people in the general public about what we earn, what they think we're earning and what we're actually earning is very, very different. And you can look this up for yourself on jobs.ac.uk. Just enter Kingston University and look at everything that's currently being advertised as jobs. And you'll see there that our lecturers start on £42,182. But this should be actually £52,727.50 if you use a calculator that takes allowance of inflation, the RPI, the amount that this salary should have gone up over the last decade. So 10 years on, we are £10,000 worse off as a lecturer than we should be. Putting this in perspective, the VC, Stephen Spear there, he is on a salary that is over £350,000 per year. And this does not include things like expenses to travel, where he travels in first class and business class, and the rest of us are told we absolutely cannot. He has catered events where we are told we don't have the funds for coffee and tea during our meetings. Speak to your lecturers. Ask them about their working conditions. You can find lecturers on kingston.ac.uk, look them up, email them, meet with them, talk about their workload, how much they're actually working per week, and see how much that is over the 37 hours per week they're being paid. Ask them about their cost of living. The pay scales are national pay scales. These don't take into account the differences in cost of living across the UK. We do get a small amount of extra pay for being in Kingston, but it is not anywhere near enough to make up for the difference in cost of living in a university that is in the Greater London area. Talk to them about their loss of pay over the last 10 years and the education and training that they've gone to get to where they are today. In the UK, an undergraduate degree tends to be 3 to 4 years. Then you have 3 to 4 years doing a PhD, and some people will have done a master's degree in between that of 1 to 2 years. Following on from that decade of education, we have time where we are postdoctoral researchers, continuing our learning, continuing our education by working in laboratories and teaching for universities. And that's another 3 to 6 years. So that's a lot of time where we are either not being paid or not being paid as well as our peers who graduated from university at the same time as us. And therefore that time that we've been spent educating ourselves, learning, training, the experience we've gained, that should all be taken into account when we're hired, but yet we're hired at the same levels that some of our peers were hired at 5, 8 years earlier. So please, the last thing that you can do is to donate to our crowdfunder. We are currently releasing the Kingston University Hardship Fund 2023 appeal, and this crowdfunder will help support Kingston University UCU staff who are facing a reduction in the pay that they're bringing home because of our industrial actions, because of strikes, because of the marking and assessment boycott, and the removal of 50% of their pay for participating in this. And I must stress that marking for an academic member of staff, even during exam time, even during heavy marking loads of the year, does not make up 50% of our time. So these people are being penalized greater than the time they would have spent marking. So finally, what is our time worth? So one of the points that I mentioned in the previous slide was to know what we are earning, and I went through what it is for a lecturer. But let's look at one day of pay in the life of a lecturer. A lecturer, as I mentioned, is on £42,182. This is $21.87 per hour at 7.4 hours in a day, which is what is calculated for the 37-hour work week divided amongst 5 days. And that would be £161.84. Now this is gross. This is before our tax is taken out, before national insurance is taken out, and before our pension contributions are taken out. And those are all things that have to be taken out before we actually take home any pay. So the amount taken home is much less than that £161. Also keep in mind that some of our members of staff are part-time staff, so they won't be working 37 hours in a week or won't be paid for working 37 hours in a week. And many people at the lecturer level are hourly paid lecturers. So some days they may not be paid anything at all, and some days they may be paid for just a few hours. Next, we have an associate professor. So you may be thinking, okay, that's great, but not everyone's a lecturer. Lots of people are senior lecturers and associate professors, and there's even a few professors. So when we look at these salaries, the associate professor, if you look at jobs.ac.uk, they start on £57,011 per year. Again, this is gross. This is before taxes, national insurance, and pension contributions. So that is £29.55 per hour times the working day, £218.67. So that's not too bad, but do keep in mind how much of that is coming out for national insurance, for tax, and for pension. And then also think about those people who haven't been promoted to associate professor because their workloads are too high for them to be able to fill out the application forms to become an associate professor. Think about the associate professors who are facing 50% pay cuts because they've been participating in the marking and assessment boycott because they believe that our workloads need to be addressed. They believed that casualization, use of temporary workers needs to be addressed. They believe in bridging that pay gap, and they believe that fundamentally we should be paid in line with what it costs to live. One day in the life of a professor, professors then are on £65,772, and most people find this very surprising. They think we're on £100,000 or more, which we are not. We're on £65,772, and unlike some of the other grades where you can incrementally move up a bit and a bit and a bit each year, for someone on a professorial scale, it is not as straightforward for that to increase at all. That's £34.10 per hour for the working day at £252.34. So what is this relative to some other salaries at the university? So let's look at one day in the life of the VC who I mentioned on a previous slide. So I mentioned that he earns over £350,000 per year, and that's before any other benefits and expenses and things that he claims for. So if we just take 350,000, it will be somewhat more than that. We'll just take that amount. The hourly pay for our VC is £181.44. So that hourly rate is higher for 1 hour in a day of the VC than a whole day for one of our lecturers. So they're on 161.84 and he's on 181.44 for 1 hour. If you look at the whole day, that comes to a staggering £1,342.66. This is more than 8 times what a lecturer makes, more than 6 times what an associate professor makes, and more than 5 times what a professor makes. Okay, so you may say, but he's only one person. He's the one person who's in charge of the whole university, so a larger salary. More than 5 times what a professor is making. And when you look at the other senior staff are earning in excess of £120,000 per year. We don't know exactly how much because each of them has an individual salary packet that is agreed at the time that they are hired, and then they give themselves raises each year. So I would ask you to please consider these amounts. Please consider donating to our crowdfunder. Please consider those members of staff, particularly our hourly paid lecturers, who are going to be really hardly hit by strike actions that have caused them to lose any amount of the salary that they're bringing in. Go to the Support Kingston UCU Hardship Fund 2023 appeal and please make a donation. Please give what you can. Consider, if you can budget for it, if you can achieve that, donating a day of your salary to help those who are having days of theirs taken away. And please remember, we thank you for your support. For anyone who is going to write to the VC, for anyone who's going to spread the information that I've given you about the amount we earn at Kingston University, for anyone who's going to go speak to members of academic staff about industrial action, about their working days and their working lives. Thank you. Thank you very much for your support.